There's a passage in Ken Dryden's The Game towards the end of its last chapters, and of course the soccer epilogue, where he talks about British soccer and its comparison to North American sport. Dryden predicted, even before he wrote the last chapter, that probably New York Islanders were going to win the Stanley Cup. Montreal was chasing them most of the end of the season, trying to hit them in the standings, and the Islanders finished first overall. Unfortunately, the Islanders, who should have won the Cup that year, probably would have bet Montreal in the final if they would have faced them, were knocked out by, of all people, the New York Rangers. And the Rangers held them, I think, to 11 regulation goals in a 6-game series. So I really don't know what happened there, but we're going to take a look. Bill Torrey led the team as GM, with Al Arbour as coach and Clark Gillies as the great captain. Now, the Nassau Coliseum saw some great games that year. They ended up 51, 15, and 14 with a plus 144. 358 goals for, 214 goals against. Only one was better was Montreal. First in the Patriot Division, first in the Campbell. Now, this was their 7th season in the National Hockey League. Again, they were 1 point over Montreal Canadiens in the regular season standings, and everybody was saying, oh, passing of the guard. Now, in the regular season, they weren't hard-pressed by the Flyers too much. They won the division by 21 points, which is 10 full games. The Flyers were 40, 25, and 15. But the New York Rangers were holding on. They finished with 91 points. And with Esposito, Duguay, an assemblage of veterans, Greshner, the Maloneys, they were a tough team that year because they knew how to win. Now, the Islanders started the season quite strong, but the second game of the season, I think they learned from this. They lost 10-7 on the road to the Toronto Maple Leafs. From then on, they smartened up. They had a session of games between November 4th and December 9th where they went 11-0 and 3, 14 games undefeated. Now, the big loss, of course, was in Montreal 2 weeks before Christmas, which was kind of going to be a preamble of the game. But he went on another winning streak between December 12th and January 2nd, winning 8 games and tying 1, so a second win streak. From then on, he went on another undefeated streak, 6 games, going 4-0-2. Now, we were seeing a trend that year, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the trend. They were losing key games to the Rangers. They lost in New York on January 17, 5-3. Lost at home 7-2 to the Rangers. And basically lost a tough 3-2 decision in New York on February 25th. So we're smelling a little bit of problems. Although they won 5-2 on March 17th, we're saying to yourself, well, maybe the Rangers are going to be a big problem for the Islanders. But let's look at the team in the regular season that year, ladies and gentlemen. Brian Trottier had 134 points, 47 counters, 87 assists. Mike Bossy, 69 goals. 50 and 50, of course. 126 points, 57 assists. Denny Potvin, also a triple figure for points. 31 counters, 70 assists. Gillies had 91 points. The great Stéphane Persson got 66 points, including 56 assists. Bobby Bourne had a good year, 30 goals and 31 assists for 61 points. Tonelli, again, he was coming on, 56 points in 73 games. Billy Harris had 15 counters. Wayne Merrick had 20. Bobby Nystrom had 19. Mike Kazicki, very underrated player, at 16. The veteran Lauren Henning had 13 counters. But a good defense with Dave Lewis, Bob Lorimer, Jerry Hart, Pat Price, and Bert Marshall. They were doing quite well in the back end. And of course, they had the two number ones. Chico went 26-7 and 10, while Billy Smith went 25-8-4. Now, here's where it gets freaky. They entered the 1979 NHL playoffs. All the hopes of the world that this is going to be the year, because a lot of people felt, again, they were on the cusp of greatness. And by losing in the playoffs that year, they would have won 5 straight. They could have won 6 straight, losing to the Oilers. My old pal Joe Powers can tell you, they were a very, very strong team in 1979. Now, they got a direct bye into the quarterfinals and dominated Chicago Blackhawks, winning 6-2, 1-0 in overtime, 4-0 in 3 runs. So it was 14 14-3 against Chicago. Now, Montreal played Toronto in the second round, and pretty well deceiving. Toronto advanced past the prelims, and you had the Flyers Rangers series. Now, a lot of people felt that the Flyers had the team to beat the Rangers, and were showing that after the first game, winning 3-2. But get this, ladies and gentlemen, they turned up the offense 7-1, 5-1, 6-0, and 8-3 for the Rangers. So technically, Philadelphia only scored five goals in the last 4 games, and 26 counters for the Rangers. And to break it down, that 7-1 game against Philadelphia, this is the players that they had on the team. And they were stacked, ladies and gentlemen. Stevie Vickers, Ron Greschner scored, Don Maloney, Ron Greschner scored again, Eddie Johnson, Don Murdoch, Mike McEwen. And of course, they had John Davidson in the nets. Now, again, Walt Kachuk was there as well, Ron Duguay, Carol Vadnais, Anders Hedberg, and Ulf Nielsen had come over from the WHA, but Bobby Hull didn't come with them. And of course, they had players like Bobby Sheen as well. Sheen was a dangerous skater, a former Montreal Canadian, and but you had the youth like Duguay and Murdoch. Anders Hedberg, good on offense, good on defense. But like I said, they were showing a lot. Now, it was a second playoff meeting between the Rangers and the Islanders after that infamous 1975 series where they won 2-1. Now, a shocker at Nassau in the opening game. Rangers won 4-1 with Murdoch scoring his 5th of the postseason. Eddie Johnson, who never found a dentist, couldn't fix his teeth, scored as well. Ron Duguay and, of course, Bobby Sheen. Chico Resch took the loss for the Islanders. Now, in Game 2, again, a tough match. Kachuk, Sheen, and Esposito scored from New York in regulation, and Espo scored at 15:48 to put it into the third, but Dennis Potvin scored the overtime winner to make it 4-3 for the hometowners. Now, Game 3, another Ranger defensive effort. Sheen again, Esposito, and still Steve Vickers scored, and Davidson only had to stop 16 shots. So he's saying, where the Islanders' offense gone to? Well, I think the Rangers' fast style and overall strength with the youth core, because anytime that the Islanders would come up, Maloney or Sheehan or Murdoch would make them pay in Esposito. In that game, another contest in overtime, Islanders won 3-2 as Bobby Nystrom with his second, and remember that because the next year he scored in overtime. Now, back in Nassau Coliseum, you're thinking, hey, it's 2-2. Islanders got it made. However, ladies and gentlemen, Maloney again, Maloney, 15:29 to give a 1-0 early lead. Well, first period lead. Lauren had tied up, but Lucien Deblois, another underrated player, made it 2-1, and then Kazicki scored to make it 2-2. Then Greschner made it 3-2. Nystrom tied it up, but Anders Hedberg, playing a more defensive role, I know it's weird to say, scored a winner to make it 4-3. So back at MSG, probably one of the biggest games for the Rangers in quite some time. Mike Bossy opened the scoring, but Murdoch and Greschner wrapped it up for the Rangers with 2 games, and it was all defense all the way through. Now, what was kind of weird with this, ladies and gentlemen, Billy Smith and Chico were kind of sharing duties. Chico got Game 1, Billy got Game 2, Chico got Game 3, Billy got Game 4, and 5, and then Resch again. But let's put this in perspective, ladies and gentlemen, okay? 4 goals in regulation at Nassau in the first 2 games, unheard of, okay? Only 3 games in regulation back in Madison Square Garden, 3 goals in regulation in Game 5 at home, and 1 goal in regulation in Game 6. So the Islander offense. But what happened to them in the postseason? Everybody's wondering. Well, for example, I'll tell you what happened here. Mike Bossy wasn't a factor as much in that series as the Rangers as he could have been. For example, Brian Trottier had a terrible series. In his 10 games, he only had 2 counters. Bossy was scoring his regular amount, but Bob Bourne only got 1 goal, okay? Billy Harris only had 2 counters. of all people, Clark Gilly only one goal. And the veterans like Eddie Westfall and Lauren Henning only had a combined 3 goals in 16 games. Defense wasn't scoring much. But how can you lose a series between Billy and Chico where he only had a 2.05 goals against average and had 2 shutouts? It's beyond the beyond, ladies and gentlemen. So the Islanders should have won the cup, but there was like factors are at play. It's a combination of styles. That was more of a territorial match. In no shape or form should the Rangers have made a Stanley Cup final in 1979, because it was that bizarre to think. Yes, they had a good team, and they were kind of like a WHA team in WHA team in the league. But to make the finals after the way that they played against the Flyers, like I said, you got to understand the Rangers again, stock team, and they were leading 2-0 in Game 2 against the Montreal Canadiens in the finals, and just their offense completely disappeared. They were scoring tons of goals, but after the first game, they only scored 6 goals in regulation in the last 4, and they were lucky to score those goals. And Pat Hickey would have been a factor against Montreal, but he wasn't. But it is what it is. So were the Islanders as good as the Rangers? Much better. 2 good goalies, good defense, but it's a clash of styles. And a 7-game series can go either way. Like the Islanders had to win 2 games in overtime to push it to 6. That could have been a 4 straight sweep. And if that sweep would have occurred, maybe Montreal would have lost because the Rangers were a little bit tired out. But, it is what it is. Ladies and gentlemen, hockey is strange. I've seen Queen pageants where the ugliest person won the pageant. Montreal did not have a consistent season in 79. They ever play the Islanders, but how it works, you have to beat who's in front of you. And if you don't beat them, you lose. Look at Toronto Maple Leafs in 2021. Could have made it in a cup final, but they choked against Montreal. Hartford should have bet Montreal in 86, but they choked in 7. Louis gave up a terrible goal against Lemieux in overtime. Maybe the problems in 81 caught him up. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a chance, look at the YouTubes, the games between Rangers and Islanders, that series. It was turf warfare too, but they stopped Trottier, they stopped Gillies, they stopped Nystrom, they stopped Stanley. And he learned from that loss. By 1980, they knew they couldn't underrate their opponent. And it's funny, too, a lot of people thought the Flyers were going to make the Stanley Cup final in 1979. They were that good. Bobby was older, but he was still, still very efficient. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's a story of the bizarre reasons why the 79 Islanders never won the Cup. And again, it's a matter of bad luck and bad timing. Say like Blue Rodeo, bad timing, that's all. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is dedicated to our good follower of our New Brunswick Independent Authors Association, Joe Powers, who knows more about the Islanders than me, who thinks the Islanders dynasty of the early 80s is the best ever, and he's entitled to his wrong opinion, but like I said, it takes all types of chocolates to make a black magic. And I like all the boxes of black magic except certain caramels, and he's the caramels in the box. But he's much smarter than me and a better writer, so he's got that going for him. So have a good one. Bye.